Hey guys, it's Foursome time again. It's still going. I'm still here on a Friday with your monthly dose of a foursome action. That doesn't really make sense, but anyway. Hey, gaming dinner guests, we're all stuffing our faces full of computer generated tidbits and in between the burgers and the salads and dips. So yeah, pretty good response. 6 responses, all different as well. Lots of some repetition of names, which I expected. Yeah. And so fantastic response again. Love to see some of the regulars coming in, and yeah, well, let's crack straight on because I'm going to make this a quick one because the question I got for you for this Friday Foursome is something that's hopefully going to sort of cascade into a sort of sharing the love for channels, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the question was for the last Friday Foursome, what gaming dinner guests would you have? 4. What am I doing with a pen? Don't know what I'm doing with a pen. Put that over there. So we had Friday Foursome favourites. We had T-Rex Space Station, Infected Flinch, JL76 Gaming, 8-Bit J with his second Foursome entry, I think. Thank you, Jay. The Synergy 19 Luke, and Hellfire 64. Thank you very much, guys, for all your responses. It's been great watching them as always, and looking forward to hopefully you all returning for the next Foursome, because you're, especially JL and T-Rex, and you guys never let me down. You're always in there. So thank you very much for the support, and everyone, always thank you very much for the support. It's always great to see the responses for the Friday Foursome. Like I said, I will continue. If people still like it, I will continue on into, I don't know, just continue on. I'll continue on until it's dead in the ground, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. Definitely a minimum of 10 episodes, I know that. But anyway, let's crack straight on with the videos, with the winners. And the person with the most votes this time is T-Rex Space Station. 4 votes, I believe. And let's see what people he would like to have to his dinner table.
Okay, so number 1 then is Allo, which I'm sure most of you guys have heard of Allo. Allo is a famous developer for Sierra software, and we're looking at, you know, around the 80s, early 90s period, which is really where I was cutting my teeth in video games. You know, that was around when I was just starting to play my first video games. And Sierra games were a big deal for me back in the day. Those were my first introduction to point-and-click adventure games, which are really one of my favourite types of video game, and one that I've looked back on very fondly as an adult. Now, of course, Allo's biggest accolade is the Leisure Suit Larry series, which is absolutely iconic. I can remember playing it when I was a kid, and my parents being like really tetchy about me playing it because they knew there was so much dodgy adult content in there. But the Leisure Suit Larry series was really important because it was the first kind of video game series that directly dealt with adult themes. And it had lots of humour in there, but lots of adult humour. And it kind of pushed the boundaries as to what video games could actually do and the areas where they could go to and what they could explore. You know, before that we hadn't really had games that were so overtly adult and that included so many hilarious or rude jokes like that. And for me, this was the development of the modern adventure game, which often pokes fun at things, has lots of witticisms, and sometimes has rude stuff in there, has adult content. Allo is a very funny guy. You'll only have to play the first Leisure Suit Larry game to know that he has a great sense of humour and that there's so much wittiness packed into those games that will make you laugh your head off. He actually still has a website now, and it's got loads of, I think he's developed like a gag generator type program or something. I don't think he's still directly involved in game development, but he has to be recognised as making such a big contribution to the point-and-click video game genre, and of just being a funny guy that pushed the boundaries. And I've always been drawn to characters that push the boundaries in terms of what video games can do, what they're about, and, you know, how offensive they can be, because it's all about having fun and taking the piss sometimes, isn't it? And if you haven't actually played the Leisure Suit Larry series, I strongly recommend that you do it, even though the graphics look really, really basic and a bit, you know, they can run on my 286. There's a certain charm to them, and there's a certain skill in making characterizations through tiny little pixels. You know, it's very limited what they could do. I think that was made using the AGI editor, which you can actually still download and play with yourself, and I remember I have had a few goes with it. It's very limited stuff and a really impressive game. So, still related to the point-and-click adventure game type genre then, my next guest would be Tim Schafer. And, you know, the kind of natural step on for me from the Sierra stuff was the LucasArts games, the LucasArts point and clicks. Again, These occupied a huge amount of my time and of my interest in video games when I was younger, and were a big stepping stone for me into getting into these sorts of video games with complex plots and puzzles and things. Tim Schafer is another one who has a great sense of humour, and there's a lot of characterisation and wittiness and humour in the dialogue in the LucasArts games that he was involved with. You know, take your pick of great games that he's been involved directly in developing. You know, the Monkey Island games 1 and 2, he did pretty much 2/3 of, or more than that, the dialogue in there, and you know, you'll know how great the dialogue in that game is. It's full of humour, it's full of one-liners, it's just funny. And you know, Tim Schafer and Allo have both had this big contribution in terms of putting funny into these adventure games. One of my personal favourite point-and-click adventure games was Day of the Tentacle, and Tim Schafer again was involved directly and heavily with the development of that game. Day of the Tentacle is a game that for me set a lot of precedence in terms of the art style of the LucasArts games, and for adventure games going forward. It was very quirky and creative and cartoony, and it just drew the eye instantly. And these games haven't aged because it was all pixel art, and so they still look good to this day. There's still a lot of characterization and quirkiness and uniqueness about the art style in those games that Tim Schafer was developing. Full Throttle is another personal favourite of mine that he was involved in, and I would just love to chat to him about, you know, how he came up with the dialogue in those games, how he came up with the characters and the art styles, and you know, just share some jokes with him and see what his sense of humour is actually like in real life, because you know, you can just see it seeping out of the pores of those games, and you just know that those two guys would be a lot of fun to chat to. Next up then would be Rhianna Pratchett, the daughter of Terry Pratchett. Now I know I could have chosen Terry, but you know, even though he was involved in video games because he had the Discworld point and clicks in Discworld Noir, that wasn't his main thing. Rhianna Pratchett is really a video game story writer, I suppose would be the best way of describing her. And I think it would be absolutely fascinating to meet her. Firstly, to talk about what it was like growing up with Terry, you know, my favourite author, such a big contributor to fantasy, you know, and how his ideas and his creativity influenced her own ideas, and how those things have had knock-on effects on the stories that she's written and woven into modern video games. You know, whether any of his ideas and his thought processes had rubbed off on her, and had, you know, I'm sure that they have. I'm sure they've had a big influence. Rhianna was directly involved in development of stories for some great games. You know, one of the best being the recent Tomb Raider game, which is a superb game and was probably my favourite game that came out that year. And one of the things that's always been important to me in modern video games, in video games that are supposed to have some narrative, is the development of a good story, of a proper story that's had attention to detail and development in it. And Rhianna is quite passionate about this, about the integration of seamless stories into video games, about the development of characters, and more importantly, having the writer as a central part of video game development rather than somebody who's tagged in later. And she's often described herself as like a first aid kit for video game stories. You know, sometimes games are made and the plot's kind of, you know, hashed out, and then they think, oh shit, it doesn't read well, it doesn't flow well, let's get a writer in to fix it. I think that's more of a historic thing, and part of what Rhianna Pratchett's been pushing to do, and what I think we need to see happening more and more, and is happening, is the central focus of the story as part of the driver and an integral part in the game design process. One of the things I've been really interested in recently is Twine. Now, Twine is software for developing basic but interactive stories, and you know, branching plots and fiction that you have a choice in. And you know, this is becoming one of the important parts of modern gaming is branching narrative and interactive fiction. And you'll find lots of games on Steam that focus almost just on storytelling and choices, with very little else to the gameplay. And that's an exciting thing, and Rhianna, as an advocate of that, would be fascinating to talk to hear her ideas about narrative development, story development, and you know, the centricity of the narrator in the development of a video game. So yes, fascinating person. Last but not least then is Thomas Biskup, who pretty much independently, in his own bedroom, on a computer, designed the most detailed, engaging, thorough, fantastic, beautiful piece of art and gaming that is Add-on, Ancient Domains of Mystery. There is no better roguelike in my opinion. The game has so much detail, so much complexity, and above all, so much choice, that it really is a masterpiece. And to think that it was programmed by one man, and you're talking about years and years, if not, you know, you're talking about decades of programming here. The game is still in development now, and it's been so constantly being revised and updated for years. It really is a testament to his diligence and creativity as a programmer. There are some great ideas in there. There's a god system, there's, you know, an alliance system, there's magic, there's fighting, there's random risks, there's all the things you want in a roguelike game. And I would love to speak to him about his ideas, about, you know, how he developed his god systems, about how he's taken traditional roguelikes like Rogue, that's not a roguelike, that is the original, you know, like Rogue, and developed on them, and how roguelikes have remained relevant to today. Because if you look on Steam, there are lots of new games coming out that focus on those mechanics that we first found in Rogue and early roguelikes, and how he sees that influencing modern gaming and pushing us forward into the new era of RPGs, which have undoubtedly taken influences from the statistics and the dungeon crawling and the exploration and the randomness of roguelike games. Of course they have. You only have to look at Rogue to see that modern games have taken a lot from that. And I'd like to ask him about, you know, his ideas for games and ideas for, you know, bedroom programmers, for how people can start off projects on their own. And I'm sure he'd be an inspiring guy to speak to in terms of motivating yourself and pushing yourself forward to think what you could achieve. Actually, Adam has now had a Kickstarter campaign, and he's now developing a graphical tile set, so that what was relatively punishing in the past, ASCII based, you know, just a blank screen with ASCII on it, now he's developing music and graphics, which is what we've always kind of dreamt that Adam could be. And it's going to turn into something even bigger than it already is. At the moment, I think it's relatively underground for the hardcore people, but once it takes off on Steam and gets graphics, well, there's no limit to it, I don't think. So those are my 4 video game related people that I think would be fascinating to talk to, fascinating to invite to dinner. And I look forward to hearing your own answers to this question. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you all soon.
So as you can see there, Ben's picks, very good. Obviously looking at a bit of comedy there from Tim Schafer and Allo, obviously for the Leisure Suit Larry fame and Monkey Island. Games I'm not really that close to. I mean, I used to play the original Leisure Suit Larry years ago. But yeah, I think some good stories and comedy there on the table. And interesting choice was Rhianna Pratchett. Because I was nailed on. It was bets odds on that Ben would choose Terry, but very cleverly he chose his daughter, or is it Rhianna, and because she's more involved with the gaming side of things as well as obviously the fantasy and all that kind of stuff. So that's fantastic. It's really thinking out the box there, and sort of ticks Ben's fandom for the Pratchett's saga, as it were. There, so brilliant. So well done, Ben. Well done. Great response. You were the winner. And the second place. I keep looking down there because I'm looking at the shortlist again because my memory is shit. Sorry. Second place is the infected one himself, with no golden skull and no pumpkin or unicron or anybody that's infiltrating his video. Not this time. It's infected Flinch, and here his his dinner guests.
Wow, he's excited, isn't he? So yeah, this is a video response. It's the Friday Foursome. So yeah, it's 4 dinner gaming guests you'd invite round for dinner and a little drink. Now, 2 of them I know definitely off the bat who I'm going to take and ask them to come round if they want. If they fancy a bit of a Sunday roast, if that's the kind of thing they like. 2 of which I've actually met before and I've actually talked to, but I'd love to actually just pick their brains properly. And the other 2, I'm not sure if I'd ever would meet them, but I'd love to meet them at one point. But the first guy, I would definitely love to come round, and he was awesome when I met him. It was such a lovely guy. Jeff Minter. Is just such an awesome dude. He's awesome. Some of the great games that came out for the Atari ST and the Spectrum and Commodore 64 that he did over the years, and that's just so simple. When he did Tempest for the Atari Jaguar, I'd just love to know what his mindset is when it comes to just making simple games. You know, because some people do naturally have that ability to just go, I'm going to make something and it's going to be fun. There you go, have it. And literally, I think that's all he does. He just literally thinks it, because I remember when we went to Manchester last year, he did the Oculus Rift, and it was, I can't remember the name of the game, but he was doing I played Tempest on the Oculus Rift, and I was buzzing my tits off. And that was the first try I had of it. So I'd love to have him round and just know, where does he get these ideas from, and what are they, and where are they coming from, and how does he do it? So yeah. By the way, game over there, Spider-Man, PS1. Just thought I'd mention it. Yeah, so Jeff Minter, the man of Llamasoft, I would definitely have him come round. The second guy, and he's awesome. He's another awesome guy, and the fact that I tweeted him about something, and he just replied, and he seemed awesome about it. And when I met him at Manchester, well, I watched him from far. I wanted to talk to him, but talking to him, when I tweet him, he always talks back. He's just really humble and cool. It's Charles. I always think I always get his name wrong for his surname, but I apologise. It's either Charles Cecil or Charles Cecil. It's one or the other, but Charles is the guy who made Broken Sword, which was very influential to me as a young'un. Especially how to tell stories. The guy knew what he wanted and how he wanted to do it. When he was there at Manchester, he was saying that he had an idea for an Egyptian game that he actually pitched to Virgin, and they told him, no, we don't want it. But I would have loved to have seen what that was and whether or not they'll make it. I'd love to see that. But how his brain works, because he researches things that people don't necessarily do. He always has the weird niche thing, because the Templars back then weren't a big thing, and he knew that. So how does he do it? And where does he just suddenly think, oh, I'm going to think of the most obscure thing I can think of and make that entertaining? Which he did. And he made a very successful series out of it. And I tweeted him a couple of months back about the fact that he made Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the second edition, which I thought I'd just tweet him about, and he tweeted back, and I thought that was awesome. You know, I'd love to have him round for dinner. It'd be awesome. Whether or not he'd like me cooking, that's another thing entirely. So yeah, he'd be number 2. Sorry about that, quick cut. Third guy, who I would love to come round and have a chat with, because he's just the amount of sheer energy the guy's got creative wise, and what he did for adventure games back in the day. Tim Schafer, you know, with Monkey Island and Full Throttle, to Grim Fandango, all that kind of stuff. The guy's got a great sense of humour, and it's not an American sense of humour either. It's very British. So I would invite him round, and I'd like to have a chat with him, because he seems a funny guy and he's very intelligent. I know he made Broken Age, and Stefan keeps telling me to watch the documentary about Broken Age, because with the way that Stefan talks about it, the guy just wants to make games, and there just seems to be so much red tape. But I need to watch it, and I'd like to understand what his original, you know, that jump cut, because I choked on myself. But no, I'd like to understand where he comes from, because obviously from days of old, there wasn't as much publishing red tape and what needs to go into making games, and it was a simpler time when he started up, and it would be an interesting retrospective to him and how he makes it now, and how people still buy his games. So, you know, I'd love to see what he'd have to say. Excuse me, I am suffering with my throat. But yeah, the last guy who I would ask round for dinner, he's probably bugged up. He'd have too much on his plate anyway. Sid Meier, depending on how you pronounce his second name. I'd have him, not physically, but I'd have him round for dinner. Reason is, the guy seems to have a keen eye for what is a good game. He's like Jeff Minter. He's one of these people that knows what works well and what doesn't. I mean, from the fact that he made Civilization, which is a perfect game, and it is a perfect game. It's really, really good. I don't Oh, excuse me. I don't know how he managed it, how he managed to just bottle up something so perfect, and he keeps making it better. You know, I don't know what he does and how he does it. I mean, he would be somebody I'd love just to go, how do you do it? And where does it come from? So, yeah, those would be my four. Those would be the four I'd invite round for possibly a barbecue or dinner or some sort of related treat on my dinner plate.
So yes, the infected one there. Again, another Tim Schafer fan. So around his dinner table was a lot of, should we say, perfectionists, people that are really meticulous about their games. Sid Meier, for instance, with Civ. I mean, you could... Civ, what a bloody long, complicated, but bloody weird, excellently weird game. I mean, it's just... It's a legendary game, isn't it? And I suppose Sid Meier is also a legend along with it. And of course, the Llamasoft legend himself, Jeff Minter. And I'm doing exactly the same thing as you did, Dave. Having problems with my throat. So, but you noticed that in his vid, didn't you? So, yeah, well, obviously I briefly saw Jeff Minter recently at Play last year. Bloody hell, I'm wishing the time away, aren't I? Yeah, lovely bottle of Stella on hand and Bud or whatever he was drinking constantly. But he seemed like a nice chap from afar. I didn't quite get to mince my words in front of him. But anyway, it was people were saying he was a great bloke, and yeah. So that again, it would be a great dinner. I'm again not sure to you. You're right about your cooking, Dave. Maybe you should get KFC or something. Just a suggestion. But anyway, great stuff from Infected Flinch there. And finally, but no least, I don't know. Let's just get on with it. It's Hellfire 64. That's it. Here's his guests.
Obviously, there's going to be a slight technical kind of bias to mine, and you can sort of see the picture that I'll draw with it. So we'll start off, and my first guest would have to be Andrew Braybrook, who obviously probably best known as a games dev on the C64, but also did a bunch of Amiga and other stuff, ST obviously. And if you know kind of stuff on my channel, you know that I really, really admire his work. He's made a lot, made a lot of my favorite games like Paradroid, Iridium, and to be able to sit down and just be able to have a good technical conversation about aspects of game design, programming on the 64, all of those things, I think it'd be a great opportunity to do that. Now, to follow that, I would probably add Paul Kohler, who is best known he's a homebrew C64 programmer, and he's responsible for Super Breadbox, Micro Hexagon, some of these really tight cartridge conversions of indie homebrew games. They're not really, well, the indie games aren't really homebrew, but squeezing a lot of those titles for larger machines onto the 64, talking about how programming on the machines these days versus back in the 80s, I think that would be a very interesting contrast. And again, those are, that kind of development is what I really like. And, talking game design and game programming, be able to do that. Now, my third and fourth are kind of lumped together. And that's the duo of Robert Russell and Bob Yanis. They're two engineers at Commodore who were basically responsible for a large part of the C64 hardware design. Yanis was also responsible for the SID chip. And whilst I'm not much of a muso, that's still something that's a pretty amazing thing about the machine. So being able to talk with them about what it was like designing the computer, how Commodore worked back, and a lot of those things. You could imagine some good stories from the hardware side of things. I mean, I'm more a software guy than a hardware guy, but I really, I'm interested in that sort of aspect of history. So there's that sort of historical element there. It's really brief, but two game designers, one from the past, one from the present day, and two of the hardware designers are my favourite bit of hardware.
So as expected from Rob there, a proper Commodore loving. It's the Commodore table, the Commodore dinner table, where all the foods are going to be shades of brown and grey. I'm only joking. No, it's great to see someone like myself when I have so much passion for the Amstrad, and when you see someone with passion for a certain system, Rob has so much passion for the Commodore 64, and it's so obvious when it comes out, and he's dedicated to the machine. It's great to see that, it really is. And everybody, you know, the two software guys, the two hardware guys, all to do with the Commodore 64, round his table, have a good chat about the brown keyed wonder. Yeah, fantastic. I would actually be very interested to speak to the guy, like he says, who designed the SID chip, because that's one thing that I was always jealous of when it came to the Commodore, was the SID chip was fantastic. It is amazing. Yes, I know I like the AY because it's Amstrad, you know, but the SID chip is better, isn't it? I mean, it did some amazing things for what the system could do at the time. So thank you, Hellfire64, for that. Great choices again. All 3 brilliant responses. All 6 responses were great. As always, I get nothing less. I'm spoiled for choice. I'm really humbled. Can you guess what this drink is, by the way? So, right. Thank you very much for that. Hope everyone enjoyed everyone's channels. Obviously, the links to all them, the full-length videos for all that, all down in this area here. And let's move on to Friday Foursome 7. Are we on 7 now? I think we're on 7 now. Yeah, Friday Foursome 7. Not going to turn my hands there. Quite a straightforward one. I've been posing questions where I think people have been a little bit difficult to think of the answers, so I don't want to make a brain teaser on this one. I want to make this a friendly one. I want to make this sharing the love, getting more views on channels that deserve more views. So it's simple. 4 gaming channel shoutouts. That's all I want you to do. It's very straightforward. Now you can do this in any way you want. You can shout out your friends, you can shout out your big channels, you can shout out your small channels, you can shout out anything you want, as long as it's gaming related or some sort of associated to some way of gaming. Now, I normally, obviously, I mention a lot of my friends on YouTube and other channels that I watch regularly all the time, so I'm not going to do the obvious shout outs, and I'm not going to shout out big channels. Well, one big channel, but there's a reason for that. So my 4 shout outs will be: first is Chinny Vision. Now he is, the production values on his channel are second to none. They're really, really good. He pulls the stops out to make each show that he does very high quality. The audio is fantastic, the visuals are great, it's brilliant introductions, all bespoke to that particular video, and each video focuses on one game, cross-platform. He's an Amstrad fan as well, so that helps. He compares like the Amstrad Spectrum, Commodore Amiga, ST, MSX and the versions of the game, and then talks about the game in depth. The knowledge of him is brilliant when it comes to the game. He does great research. I really enjoy everything he does. I think I've watched nearly every video that he's produced in the last 6 months or something. Very enjoyable, and they're also quite short as well, so they won't take your entire day up. So yeah, Chinny Vision, he's a fantastic channel, that is. And he needs more subs, he needs more views, because very good, very, very good. My second shout, my second foursome pick, is Laird's Lair. Laird's Lair? Yeah, the Laird. Now, the Laird, he does compilation videos. They're actually quite cool. He does like, he shows you a compilation of all loading screens from a certain developer on a certain system, and then say for instance he'll do all the Taito title screens from the Spectrum, and then all the Capcom title screens from the Commodore or the Amstrad. Again, focusing on 8 bits. He does quite a considerable amount of Amiga stuff. He does he has a video series where he compares the music from a certain game on different platforms, which is really good to listen to and interesting. He doesn't speak much, but who needs to, because it's all about the old 8s and 16-bit for him. And they're very good videos, and they're just great sort of time killers to watch, and educational without having the information rammed into your head. So Laird's Lair, check him out. He definitely needs more subs. Third will be Cyril at Defunct Games. Now, I've been subbed to Defunct Games for probably about 2 years now. Now his viewer base has started to grow in the last year, which is good to see. But he needs more, because he's very clever in some of his comedy. He takes gaming. He does straight reviews, but he also does these comedy videos, which are associated with gaming, which are really, really funny as well. He does interview reenactments of interviews that happened in the past. There was an N64 one he did, which is really interesting. He gets someone else to voice act one part of the interview, and he plays one part of the other interview, and it's really, really cleverly done, really well done. He's got his own animation in there as well. I think based off that lawyer game, which just escapes me now. Oh, that lawyer game. No, it's escaped me. Damn it! But if you go to his channel, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because it's on his title banner. But yeah, Defunct Games, really, really good channel, and a good website as well. So check him out. Check Cyril out. And finally, my big channel shout out. Now, I've been watching Wingnut for a while, and his channel, and he definitely. I mean, this is a channel that deserves to be one of the big guys, because again, the amount of work that goes into every video is off the cuff. It's off the chart. And it's Gaming History Source. That is his channel. Many of you might be aware of Gaming History Source. He does the best comparison videos across the board, second to none. He gets so many different systems crammed into one video with one game playing to compare one game. Again, he doesn't speak much, but that again, the visuals say it all. The capture is excellent, the production is brilliant, and again, it's just the amount of work it must take to make just one video with all the different emulations, and he uses a combination of emulation and original hardware as well. He admits that as well, but then that makes it for a better capture, doesn't it? But it's so interesting when you don't know a certain game has come out on another system. You think, oh, what did that look like? What did, say, EIR Kung Fu look like on the Spectrum? What did it look like on the arcade? No, because he puts the arcade one in there as well. And his channel will tell you this all the time. They're great videos to watch, really enjoyable. It's right down my street, and hopefully right down your street as well. So there are my 4 gaming shoutouts. What are your 4 gaming shoutouts? Again, you can do this any way you want. They can be big channels, it can be your buddies, they can be people you haven't shouted out before, they could be channels like I've done, channels that I watch regularly and consistently and never really mentioned them before. So that's the way I've gone down at this time. So hopefully we can spread this pretty good. I want this one to spread, because I would like everyone to benefit from this. If everyone does one of these Friday Foursome, everyone will benefit from this, and everyone will get a view, and hopefully increase viewership of some of these fantastic channels that are out there. And I want to hear some of your fantastic channels that I don't know of. I'm sure loads of you out there have channels that you watch regularly, and I have no clue what they are, and Mr. Next Door won't know what they are, and so on and so forth, and all the people that watch the Friday Foursome. And that's what it's all about, sharing, get it out there, the smaller channels, the bigger channels, whatever. Let's spread the YouTube love, as it were. So, I'm going to have a slug of my tea, because my throat's starting to go, as you can tell. And that was Friday Foursome 7. And I will see you next time. Congratulations to the winners. All links and details and everything else all down in the description box. Friday Foursome out.